We are going to start. Thank you for joining us for this webinar session, DHIS2 for supply chain monitoring, good or bad idea. We'll try to give you some answers. So please note that we are going to hold the same session, but in French tomorrow at 11 a.m. Thank you. So I am Mireille Chagang, Capacity Strategy Lead at Blue Square. And please don't hesitate to reach me if you have any inquiries about the topic we are raising today or about the other topic we raised before. Thank you, Romain. So this webinar is in the framework of a series of webinars called Digitizing Your Program Tools and Tips. And it aims at giving project managers, M&E, and mill managers the tool to choose the right digital tools to monitor their program and leverage data. It's brought to you by Blue Square and IT for Life. So somewhat about those organizations. Blue Square is a company specialized in supporting the implementation and use of data system and technologies in the health sector, but not only, also in education and other sectors, and for various organizations and such as NGOs or international development organizations, or also we collaborate with the private sector. IT for Life is a social enterprise providing special digital tools for NGOs and the actors of the social economy. And we hold, as I said, a series of several webinars before. So as you can see, we had before monitoring your program with DHIS2. We also had from data collection to visualization with the ComCare use case. We've had a session on DHIS2 tracker for beneficiary monitoring. And the latest one was a session on harnessing the power of data through dashboard. You can find out all the sessions on Blue Square YouTube channel. Today, your host will be Romain as a speaker. Romain is a CEO at Blue Square, and the facilitator will be Julie Vadam, a DHIS2 expert at Blue Square. So I give you the micro, Julie and Romain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mireille. Yeah, just a comment on the Q&A feature. If you have questions during the presentation, you can ask them in the Q&A tool module in Zoom, and we'll be answering the question directly in the chat or at the end of the presentation when we'll be taking the questions. Okay, so let's start with today's session, and again, the goal here is to provide the ideas that we have at Blue Square, but also when we discuss with other technical partners and having some kind of pragmatic approach of what is possible and not possible in the different tools that are at our disposal for different use cases. And today we'll talk about the supply chain monitoring use case, which is one of the hottest, I would say, subject topic for the moment in different countries. So the kind of questions that we like to ask today are, what are the kind of conditions where DHIS2 can be useful to monitor your supply chain? What can be supported or not in DHIS2 data model? What are the kind of workarounds or technical options that you can use to boost the usage of DHIS2 for supply chain management? And also, what are the tools that can complement DHIS2, such as e-LMIS tools, software that can be used in complementation, and when to use them, where to put the interface between these different tools, and how to manage properly the interoperability between different software. So this is the main question that we'll talk about in this presentation. So I'll start with some context. And the first one is, why is that so hard to build e-LMIS software in most countries? So there are a lot of reasons for that, but I listed some of them by discussing with logisticians, both either in programs or at the MOH. And one of the main reasons is that there are a lot of different workflows that exist in terms of supply chain management. So you have the traditional model that is based on where clients manage the inventory and submit orders to high levels of the supply chain, versus new kind of models like the VMI model, where the supplier will manage most of the inventory, and the delivery of the product will be based on the information that the vendor has. So having this kind of variation in terms of approach of the supply chain is a challenge when we are talking about software that can support easily these different workflows. Also, handling pharmaceutical products is quite challenging. You have large numbers of products that are available. So most of the time it's more than 100 or 200 products that you need to manage with specific requirements in terms of preemption dates, in terms of cold chain management. So it's I would say it's a very difficult supply chain working with pharmaceutical products when you compared with the other companies that are managing maybe 5 or 10 products in great volume. So it's not the same kind of challenges, and it's also an additional challenge for e-LMIS systems for pharmaceutical products. Then we have the question of the transaction. So for everything that is transaction based, which means that you have a vendor and a buyer, you will need the two sides of the transaction to be equipped with the system. So it means that your buyer needs to be equipped with a system, and that can be an issue when you need internet at the site of the buyer stock management site. So for instance, in the case of facility, if you want the buyer, which is the facility, to acknowledge the transaction, you will need access to internet, and if possible in real time, in the facility. And in the case of many countries, we still don't have a proper internet connection at each facility's sites, which can be an additional challenge. And the last thing is, we don't have a clear, I would say, open source solution that has, imposed itself as the key or core solution for e-LMIS, unlike DHIS2 for HMIS. So now in tens or even 70 to 80 countries, DHIS2 is used as the national HMIS. And for e-LMIS system, we still have a lot of competition between different software, so there might be an additional issue there choosing the right software that we don't have with DHIS2. That is that is the, I would say, default solution for HMIS in many countries. So just a comment on this report-based versus transactional, because you might have seen these discussions around when talking about setting up a e-LMIS system for supply chain. So the report-based model is a model where you will be reporting on a frequent basis the inventory or your needs. So that's typically for some countries, reporting the inventory at the end of the month with the stock that came in your facility during the month, stock at the end of the month, and your needs for the upcoming periods. So that's not real time, I would say, reporting. It's only every week or every month. So it's also declarative. So you are declaring the inventory in your facility based on an evaluation that you have done on paper, for instance, so counting the number of boxes. So it's not something that comes, I would say, automatically from information that is already available in the system. And also, in most of the cases, you don't have the possibility to disaggregate this information by batch. So you lose the information, I would say, regarding lot identification and preemption date, for instance. And what is different in the transactional model is that you will have most of the time a disaggregation by batch, and the data will be updated in real time when the operators are doing the transaction. And you will need to validate this transaction on the two sides of the transaction. So most of the time you have documents that are needed to validate the transaction, like purchasing orders, invoices, receipt vouchers, etc. So this is the difference that we make between these two models, and that would be important for the rest of the discussions. A last piece of context regarding the supply chain management is when DHIS2 became an option in this area, because DHIS2 has been used in many countries, as I said, as a national HMIS or as M&E platform for large programs, but it's only recently that it has started to be used as a supply chain monitoring tool. And as an example, there is this program by USAID, funded by USAID, the GSAC program, that is deploying and supporting DHIS2-based monitoring tools in Mali, for instance, and DRC. And I've put some links for you in the presentation to explore these platforms. Also recently, the University of Oslo has started to communicate quite, I would say, actively on the use case of logistics management, and this shows that more and more actors are asking the question, you know, what is the position that DHIS2 can have in this in this logistics management environment. So you have a dedicated page on the DHIS2 website that is describing the vision that the University of Oslo wants to push regarding DHIS2 and how it should be integrating with other e-LMIS, with e-LMIS software. Okay. So I'll start with a use case in DRC to show you a concrete example of a challenge, a technical challenge that we had in this country to develop logistics monitoring dashboards on top of data that is collected in DHIS2. And the first thing that I want to give you as a context is that in DRC, they set up, so it's again the Global Health Supply Chain program that helped the national program for project management to set up data entries in DHIS2. So it's in the NHMIS DHIS2, and they configured 121 products for all the verticals integrated in the same data set. And this is for more advanced technicians that are in the call, but they use 4 data elements per product, depending on the type of data that they wanted to collect. And they use category option combo in DHIS2 to detail the inputs, consumption, days of stock out, etc. For the same product on the same data element, that is the 0 or positive integer data element. I won't go into details, but the fact is that for one product, there are 4 data elements, and in one of these data elements, they have a lot of category option combos for the various information that relates to this product. And then they are doing in this data entry form computation using a custom JavaScript data entry form, and I will showcase that right after. And they are doing this data collection at 3 different levels: at facility level, at district level, and at regional level. So this is some kind of atypical, I would say, data collection for supply chain, because they are covering the 3 main levels of the supply chain directly in DHIS2. And we'll come back to that later, especially in terms of general recommendations that are around using DHIS2 for logistics. That specify that it's more suitable to use it only at 1 or 2 level max, and at lower levels of the pyramid. But in that case, they configured these data entries for the 3 levels of the pyramid of the supply chain. And it looks like this. So you have the different tabs for different verticals, and you have a list of tracker products that are there. So this is malaria products, 17 products that are listed here, and you can enter as a facility here. You can enter the stock at the beginning of the month, entries, consumption, etc. And the data set is generating automatically the average monthly consumption and the months of stock that is in your hands. And you have the same kind of data entry forms at the zone de santé level, so at the district level, and at the regional warehouse levels. Okay, so just a quick comment for computer geeks that are with us. What is the kind of best practice for DHIS2 configuration if you want to do this kind of data entries? So one of the recommendations is to use category option combos to be able to use, for instance, pivot tables where you will be able to have tables with one line per product. If you have this kind of configuration with category option combos, you will be able to link all these different category option combo with the data elements that is your product. So the only constraint here is that you have to have the same kind of data type for your data elements. So this explained why in DRC they created 4 data elements, but actually most of the information is stored in the 0 or positive integer data element. So you can manage, if you want something simple, you can manage to have 1 data element for each product and use category option combos to collect entries, consumption, days of stock out, etc. And then there is another question that arises in that case is, should you use the same data elements at different levels if you are configuring different levels of the supply chain, data entries at different levels of the supply chain? Should you use the same DEs at the different levels? And the pros are that you will have less data elements if you do so, but the cons are if you do so, you won't be able to analyze properly your data in DHIS2 pivot tables because you will be aggregating data from the district and from the facility. From the facilities on the same data element, which will be a problem when you want to differentiate the stocks that are available at district level and in the facilities that are underneath this district. So we can come back to this specific point later, but that's an important point if you have multiple levels of your supply chain that are configured in DHIS2. Okay, so once you have collected data and once they have collected data in DRC using this data entry forms, how can they use this data and compute basic indicators, so logistics indicators, and visualize the data that they have collected? And in DRC, there are 2 options. The first option is a custom web application that is developed by a Bangladeshi contractor and funded by the same DHIS2 project, and that is called Infomed. So it looks like this. It's a platform where you can connect here, and you can look at the dashboards, and you can look at the LMIS reports also that are generated by the software. So you have a lot of different reports that have been developed here, and all these reports are based on the data that is collected in the DHIS2. So it's really, I would say, a data visualization software on top of DHIS2 that allows you to look at data at the different levels, stocks at the different levels of the supply chain. They also have a data validation layer that allows you to process a bit the raw data that is collected in DHIS2 before publishing this data in the dashboards. Just a technical note here, it's plugged to the DHIS2 database, which can be heavy if you use that on production in national HMIS database, DHIS2 database. And again, it's not plugged to the analytics tables that are used in pivot tables, for instance, in DHIS2, which can be a bit lighter. So this might be an issue if you have already performance issue with your DHIS2. This is a bit risky in terms of technical approach. So this is the first visualization option that they developed in DRC, and a second option is this one. So it's using the same data collected in DHIS2, but for specific needs for the global fund that is actually managing the TB, malaria, and HIV supply chain with partners like Sanru and Corded in DRC. And they had specific requirements to do so. So they wanted to have all the products that they were managing in the monitoring tools. So in the national HMIS, they only had tracker products, and they wanted additional products in their platform. They also wanted to have proper data at the regional warehouse level. So as I said, it was configured in the national HMIS at 3 levels, but the availability of the data was very low at the regional warehouse level. So it's not something that is properly entered right now. So they wanted this additional data entry possibility in their platform. And also they wanted to be able to triangulate this data with programmatic data and to have a tool that is configurable by a DHIS2 administrator. So what we have done with them is to build an interoperability with the national HMIS. So actually we have an additional DHIS2 platform for the Global Fund that use the data from the NHMIS. That is built on a centralized product list. I will show you this tool right after. And we do all the computation, especially regarding the average monthly consumption and the months of stock and consistency checks directly in DHIS2. And we also developed set up some dynamic dashboards that are useful for them to navigate the supply chain directly in DHIS2. So let's start with the product list. Actually, we used a simple Google Sheet to list the different products that they wanted to track. So again, we can see that we have data that are coming from the national HMIS, products that are coming from the national HMIS, and we have also products that are on top needed for Corded to do its job properly. So this is the additional product that they want to track. And we were able to list in this Google Sheet all the information regarding a product. So we have a unique code for each product, and we have the unit that is used at facility level and at district and regional warehouse levels. And we have the relationship between these two units. So for instance, here you have a box that contains 168 pills, and this allows us to do the conversion between the different levels of the supply chain in the computation, and we'll discuss that later. And what we've done is based on this product list. So it's a very basic product, I would say, product catalog on Google Sheet. Based on this, we've been able through a script in Tasker, and Tasker is a tool that allows you in DHIS2 to script in JavaScript and automate tasks in DHIS2. That is available on the DHIS2 App Store. And with this, we've been configuring automatically data elements, data entry forms, computing engine mapping, and dashboards. And I will show you right after that the results of these automated tasks. So again, the goal is to maintain a centralized list of products and to update all the configuration of the DHIS2 based on this centralized product list. So I will start with the data entry form. So if you go in this platform here, so this is the Corded platform, for instance, and if you go in the data entry, you'll see that you have, for instance, at the zone level, you have the data entry for Corded. I would go place where we have data. We don't have a lot of data there. So here you have the different tabs that are of products that are managed by Corded, so the HIV, TB, and COVID products that are managed by them. So all the data in gray is coming from the NHMIS, and Corded is complementing this data in the lines in white. So it's not done in this district, but it should be done. And as you can see, all these data entries, they are generated directly by scripting in DHIS2. So this is especially when you have complex data entries like this, where you have to map all the individual data elements and category option combos, it becomes to be very difficult when you have 100 of product to maintain. So this is why we've been using this strategy to have a centralized product list and to create these data entry forms in an automated manner with the scripting in DHIS2. So this is for the data entry. Oops, sorry, I will come back. Okay, and then we have the computation issue. So as you probably know, in the aggregate part of DHIS2, you have the possibility to generate DHIS2 indicators, which are up to 1 or 2 years ago, it was quite basic. It was ratios or multiplication between different data elements. It has been upgraded recently, and I will share with you that in the next slides. But still, you would have to define all the indicators independently. So, for instance, you will have to define 1 or 2 or 3 indicators per product in DHIS2 if you wanted to use the DHIS2 aggregate indicators to manage the computation of basic, for instance, basic indicators, supply chain indicators. So what we have been set up is, and we've been actually developing this tool for years now. It's an open source tool that allows you to do Excel-like computation in DHIS2. So I will just showcase that also here in the Cordate platform. So the goal is really to use some kind of structure of the data elements and to build this structure, and then to be able to apply computation in columns like you would do in Excel. So for instance, here, if we go in one specific zone de santé, it's computing all the health facilities that are underneath this zone de santé. And what you can see is that here we are mapping all the different data elements and category options combos of all the products that are used in the platform. And once this is mapped, so this is mapped to specific data elements and category option combo that you can check here. And once this is mapped, we can apply here column-like computation. So we can apply the same computation for all the products at the same time. So for instance, here we are checking whether what is declared by the facility is consistent. So if what they declare in terms of stock at the beginning of the month plus the entries minus the outputs or the consumption minus the loss is equivalent to what they declare at the end of the month. So this is some kind of consistency checked. Then we have here we have the monthly consumption, average monthly consumption. So it's a safe division of the last 3 months values divided by 3 minus some additional periods that might be where the facility experienced stockouts. So this is the kind of computation that you can apply in column to all the products at the same time. So this is making management of hundreds of products possible in DHIS2 in terms of computation. And all this data, all these computation results are stored in data elements in DHIS2. So you are able to use also these data elements afterwards in pivot tables, for instance. So this is what we've been using. As I said, you can use time series, so you can look at what was declared in the past period and compute averages or any indicators using these past periods data. You can use also comparison between different levels. So you can, for instance, compare what is declared at facility level to what is declared at zone de santé level, at district level, and generate alerts if we have inconsistency there. And yeah, you can generate all the basic LMIS indicators without any problem or consistency checks. And as I said, results are stored directly in data elements in DHIS2. So it's basically a simple way to compute the same kind of indicators on a list of products as you would do in Excel. So yeah, so this is for the computation. And once we have done the computation, you can analyze the data either in the pivot tables, or you can use dashboard tools that we've been developing, and that it's also available openly. And this tool is, I will showcase this here. But the two main things that you wanted to have in this kind of dashboards was a way to look at the products here in line. So to have one line per product and be able to map indicators or to map different information to the same kind of product. So to have all this information on the same line. So we'll just refresh this page. I'll just refresh this page. So what you can see here is that you can configure different tables quite easily, and being able to see. So here, for instance, we see all the products. We see data at district level, data at facility level. We check the consistency between what has been distributed by district, what has been received by the facility. So we have consistency checks here. So if it's green, it's fine. And then we have the stocks at the end of the month at the district level, at the facility level, and we are able to generate the months of stock at the district level and at the facility level. So you can quickly check here for all the products where you might have, for instance, I would say here a lot of stocks at the district that is blocked or that is not getting into the facilities. In that case, you have not this kind of issue, so everything looks fine. And we have this for all the types of products, also for the TB, for the COVID. And then we have also comparison with programmatic indicators there. Just the last thing that I wanted to show here, we also have the kind of internal completeness of the data. So we can look at what is coming from the HMIS in terms of information, whether it's complete or not, what is coming from the coordinate side at facility level, at district level, and this is district level, where part of the information comes from the HMIS and part of it is complemented by coordinate. So we can see this kind of internal available data availability that is monitored day by coordinate. Okay, so again, oh yeah, and I didn't show that because it's one of the main features that was also required, is to be able to navigate different kind of trees. So here you have the three different trees that we can navigate. So we have the regional warehouse tree, and all regional warehouses are providing some districts that are actually in different regions. So we needed some way to aggregate the data of this district that depends from a regional warehouse to look at the supply chain in that way. And we also have I would say the geographical, the regular way to navigate the pyramid, so which is the standard, the default configuration of the pyramid in DHIS2. And we also had the request to have another way to navigate the pyramid, which is the NGOs that are managing different health zones, different districts, and we needed something to navigate different pyramids. So if you are here, you are in the regional house pyramid, you can go from the primary sites of the supply chain. Then you have the different CDR, the different regional warehouses, and then you have the zone de santé that depends on this. So the district that depends on this regional warehouse, and then the facilities. So you're able to look at all the data that you want to see in a way that is corresponding to your supply chain, even if this supply chain is not configured as a tree, as a DHIS2 pyramid initially in the DHIS2. So we have the same for SR, so NGOs. And what is useful there is that you can look at the stocks that you have in all levels of the pyramid. So this is, for instance, the stock that you have in the regional warehouse, the stock that you have in the zones, and in the district, and the stock that you have in the facilities. And you can look, for instance, at this primary site, and you have all the different regional warehouse there, and you can look at the stock that are available. And if you click on specific warehouse, you will see exactly what stock is available in the warehouse, what stock is available in the district that depend on this warehouse, and in the facility that depend on these districts. Okay, so just to summarize. And also, sorry, last comment on the interoperability with other software that are used in DRC. So, for instance, in the regional warehouses, they have a warehouse management system that is based on Apisoft, Apinegos. And we are currently assessing how we could plug the DHIS2 tool with this ERP, especially to be able to load automatically the data from the ERP to DHIS2, so that the partners in DRC don't have to load manually data at the end of the month in DHIS2, some kind of reporting manually. I would say summaries of what is in the regional warehouse ERP. and still to be able to visualize the stock at the different levels of the supply chain, but without having this kind of unnecessary data entry that they are currently doing in DHIS2. So yeah, the current situation, the current objective is to replace this manual data entry that they are doing on a monthly basis by an automated import from this ERP. And the kind of challenges that we are meeting there is the kind of classical challenges that you have when you talk about interoperability. It's having different installation of the software in the different regional warehouses. So they have different versions of the software, which makes it difficult to generate some kind of standard format for an easy upload of the ERP data, I would say, in DHIS2. And also, these regional warehouse ERP are hosted locally, so they are not available on the web, which makes it even more difficult. In terms of future objective, we might need at some point to do the other way around, so to send data in the ERP coming from the district and facility level information that is collected in DHIS2, and this is more the kind of direction that is recommended by the University of Oslo and by people who are actually working on the best options in terms of combining DHIS2 with e-LMIS or ERP softwares. And I will come back to that. Okay, so just a few comments on the limitation that exist in DHIS2 and how you can build workarounds this limitation if you want to push the possibilities there. So the first huge limitation is that DHIS2 is not transaction-based software. So what I just showed was only based on regular reports that are entered manually by people at the district or by people in NGOs. So this is on a monthly report, so you only have updates every month. Also, it's not possible to track individual batches, so you don't have any ideas about what are the loads or what are the puncture dates in this kind of reports. So it would be soon possible to configure a transaction-based model in DHIS2 tracker, so in the tracker part of DHIS2, but at a single level only. So you will be able to say, for instance, at facility level, what are the kind of packages that you receive, and I will discuss that a bit later. But following up packages coming from one org unit and going to another org unit, like we are doing, for instance, with patients referral in DHIS2, might be a bit complex at that stage using DHIS2. So remember that for the moment, if you use the aggregate, I would say, part of DHIS2, you will only be looking at report-based information. In the future, we might move more and more to a DHIS2 tracker model to have transaction-based information. Second limitation in DHIS2 core features that you don't have this kind of way to manage your product list or catalog directly in DHIS2. So this would be the dream. But for the moment, it's only feasible through the maintenance module of DHIS2, creating your data elements, using category option combos and doing all that manually. And what we've been doing with the Google Sheet is some kind of a bit more advanced of way of managing the project list. But it's quite still basic, and it's still simple to set up. So if you are interested in that, we can definitely share with you the script that we are using in Tasker to generate the data elements and the data entries, for instance, based on product list in an Excel sheet. Other limitations. So in DHIS2, at least in the aggregate part, you have limited computation capacities. And even in the tracker part, it takes a lot of time to define all the indicators one by one for each product. So you might need, if you are interested in doing computation in DHIS2, to use the kind of Excel-like computation engine that I showed. And again, I will come back to the general recommendation later, but it's maybe best if you are able to do this kind of computation directly in e-LMIS software if it's available in your setup. And finally, so the supply chain navigation, again, if you have a DHIS2, especially if you're using a national HMIS already that is already set up, you will have a pyramid that is the one of the NHMIS. So you cannot change that, and you have to find ways to configure your supply chain pyramid if it's a bit different from the geographical pyramid that is configured in the national HMIS. You will need this kind of navigation in order to monitor your supply chain. And for this, you can definitely use the kind of module that I just showed for the dashboarding part. Okay, so now coming to a bit, taking a bit, going a bit higher and looking at this use case, but with a more general vision about how DHIS2 can support LMIS systems and how it can be combined to other existing e-LMIS software. So I took back the scheme that was shared by University of Oslo on their website, and just a word on this. So